At Abinger Hill boarding school, Nicholas was for a time called by a friendly master Baby Blackshirt. I had, he says, to make some virtue of this or die. Then in 1933, when he was 9, he was called to the headmaster's study one day and told by Nanny Hislop that his mother had died. At 34, she had succumbed to blood poisoning resulting from appendicitis. Nicholas writes that perhaps he remembers so little about his mother because of what was not bearable. His father used his grief as he had used Simmy's love, to spur himself on.
To see, there was my father as one of the greatest orators of his time. There's an interesting connection here, because of course ever since the age of 7 I started to have the stammer. It seems to me now that my stammer was some sort of reaction against the extraordinary power of words that existed in my family. There's not only my father, all my family were very articulate. There was this tremendous reliance on the power of words for people to gain their ends, or to have an argy-bargy, or to fight, do battle, or protect themselves. There's always this sort of war going on with words. And it seems to me that I had some desire not to become involved in it. I had some fear of this, I suppose. Fear for myself and fear of myself doing it. My father thought that once he'd solved a problem in words, he'd solved the problem. And I had some sort of instinct that life was much more complicated than this. It seemed to me I was always trying to say 2 or more things all at once in order to get at the truth. And I then got stuck, I then got paralyzed. People have their spiel, their sort of instant spiels about things, as though they knew what was true. This word, I'm tempting to tell you the truth. Yeah, and out it comes, bang, bang, bang. And then the other person says, no, what you say is completely untrue. He does his bang, bang, bang. And you have the argy-bargy to and fro. And the stammerer, I think, is in some state of mind of being rather like this. They want to say 2 things at once. I think this, but on the other hand, yes, but, you see. And this is a terrible nuisance. It's a curse. But at the same time, it seems to me to be representative of something not too bad, the recognition of the complexity of words that most people do not wish to recognize, because they can just pour it out with a quick dollop of gab.
A few years before Simmy's death, Oswald had met Mrs. Diana Guinness, the third of the now legendary Mitford sisters. Nicholas writes that just as his father was attempting the impossible in politics, to start a fascist street movement that would be thought respectable, he was trying to be responsibly committed to both Simmy and Diana. By 1935 she was accompanying Oswald and 12-year-old Nicholas on their Mediterranean holiday. At 14, Nicholas went on to Eton. It was there in 1938 that he read in the newspaper that his father and Diana had 2 years previously been secretly married in Berlin, and that she now carried his child. The small ceremony had been attended by Diana's and her sister Unity's friend, Adolf Hitler. In fact, there seems to have been no deeper connection between Mosley and Hitler, but appearances were otherwise, and this, together with his advocacy of negotiated peace with Germany, led in 1940 to the government's imprisoning Oswald, Diana, and over 700 fascist sympathizers. Nicholas kept up a brave face, travelling down from Eton to visit his father in prison. Then, early in 1942, at the age of 19, he joined the army. He saw the war as an absurdity that had to be undergone. However, it provided the stage for what was undoubtedly the turning point in his life.
I had doubts about the validity of the war, but at the same time I thought, well, hell, Hitler's a pretty obvious baddie, and all my friends are joining the army. I don't want to be a sort of obvious, not traitor, but I don't sort of drop out. No, I'll join the army. But there was always part of me that had an idea, a sort of semi-comic idea, but idea at the back of my mind, well, you know, much the best thing in this sort of bloody war would be to get taken prisoner as soon as it was decently possible to do so. Then one would have gone through the motions of doing one's duty, get taken prisoner and spend the rest of the war in some prisoner of war camp learning how to write novels or something like this. You see, I had this idea in my mind, which was half a joke, to a certain extent, perhaps not.
The first time he got near the front line was in the mountains of central Italy in the winter of 1943. He was completely green, in charge of 30 men who were exhausted from fighting in North Africa. And on the second day he was with them near Monte Belvedere in deep snow. His platoon was attacked by mortar fire and they were all taken prisoner.
We were all being marched off over the hill, and I thought this was very strange and shaming, perhaps, but because it was exactly what at the back of my mind I'd rather wanted to happen. And I suddenly got overwhelmed with a feeling that this was no good. And so I pretended, when there was one big bang or burst of machine gun fire, I pretended I'd been hit, and I rolled over in the snow. But in fact, my acting wasn't good enough, and the German coming along at the back of the column came up and prodded me with the bayonet, and whereupon I jumped up quick and went on. And then I thought, again, this wasn't good enough. I got a very strong feeling that my life had hung on this in some way. I must not be captured at this moment. This idea I'd had of the easy life in the prisoner of war camp was totally false and bad, and I'd be stuck in a groove forever if I let this happen. And so once more I did a dying act, and I rolled over and over and over further down the slope. And I saw this man who prodded me before coming after me. And this time I thought, he's not going to prod me with his bayonet. He's a very nice chap to have prodded me the first time. Why didn't he just shoot me? And I thought, well, this time he's not going to prod me, he's going to shoot me. And he'd got very close to me, I mean, 3 or 4 yards away, with his rifle pointing at me, when I thought I'd really had it. And then there was a bump, boom, and he fell down and he'd been shot. And he'd been shot by my friend of the time, my good friend of the time, who'd been coming up behind us where we'd been captured in some sort of counterattack, had seen us going off over the hill, had seen this scene, and done an extraordinary shot from about 200 yards, and had shot this German dead. So then afterwards, I said, it was lucky that you recognized me and didn't shoot me too. At the time, he didn't say very much, but years later, I mean, 30 years later, when I was talking to him, he said, in fact, I didn't recognize you. I did think you were a German. I did have you in my sights, and the reason that I didn't shoot you was because I just didn't want to go on killing.
Incredible story.
It's a weird story, and so you see, this is a sort of this is a mixture of my determined to get out of what I felt was some sort of suicide pact. It was a suicide pact in my own mind, this idea of being taken prisoner and involved. I think it would have been some suicide to me. I'd have never got out of the groove of being a hopeless little creature, the stammering son of my powerful father or something, you know. It was very important for me.
Later in the war, for his bravery in an attack on the Germans in the mountains north of Florence, Mosley was awarded the Military Cross.
One's expected by society and oneself to be something of a hero. At the same time, what they are being asked to do is to kill and maim, to be responsible for other people being killed and maimed, and to think this is in some way sort of glorious. And of course this does actually happen. One does get in war at moments when one is not so afraid, one can't move, then one does sometimes get on some sort of high. And this is both part of what's expected and also disgusting. And the human race is such that this is what it makes demands on you about. One accepts these demands and feels that, well, they have to be honored. And this is the most appalling trap in one's mind that is almost unfaceable.